I'm gonna have to call this video series The Tale of the Two Volvos. So the XC70 is done, customers picking it up today. XC90, we still have to figure out why after startup in 10 seconds it kind of surges and then stalls out. Something to do with the mass airflow sensor. We'll figure that out. And then the other thing is, you won't believe this, but when I was pulling the car to my garage, my wife was like, why is the steering wheel really crooked? It's like I have to steer it to the right to keep going straight. I didn't take it on a test drive yet, but I thought, oh, maybe because we're pulling from the tow point, which is on the side of the car. But just doing a quick visual, the rear tires, this one's pretty straight, it's kind of cambered in. This one is pointed out that way. I'm like, what are the chances that there's some suspension damage? Look at this track bar. It's bent like a pretzel. I'm like, I know the towing company didn't do it this time. What gives? We had that code 4 steering angle sensor, calibration. So I asked the owner, did you notice this warning? I know he hasn't been driving the car because it's been stalling out and hard to start. He said it's about 6 months ago he took a trip to, a national forest, somewhere on rough roads or anything. He said that's when the warning came up, but he doesn't remember hitting anything or, backing into anything. But it sure looks like you can even see a shiny mark right on this control arm right there. Like the car either backed over a bolt or something that bent this control arm up and shortened it, and that's why this wheel is way out. So he said go ahead and fix it. So we'll get track bar, same exact part number as the XC70. I can't make this stuff up. What are the chances that in 1 month I get 2 non-running beached whale Volvos from the same state with, I guess, similar symptoms, but the same suspension damage, same exact track bar? I have no words. So let's take a look at this mass airflow sensor, see what's going on with that. Hey guys, this pipe, it's off the throttle body. I'm not kidding. What the heck? How? That's the problem. Unbelievable. How is this car driving? I mean, was it someone mess with it? I have no words for these things. Well, the hose clamp is still tight on the pipe, but it's blown off the throttle body. So what I think happened was when we're cranking it, it did pop pretty loud a couple times because the ignition timing was off, and that probably blew that pipe right off the throttle body. So we're gonna reattach it and take this thing for a spin, see how crooked that steering wheel is. I already got the track bar ordered up, so then it needs an oil change, and I think things should be ready for pickup. Alright, boost pipe is reattached, codes are cleared. It's running. No DTCs. Alright. So did its little warm-up thing. Let's take it for a rip. So this is what I mean by the steering wheel being crooked. Exactly the same as the other Volvo. Unreal. So I don't know if the owner, I mean, this is very noticeable, but I guess he didn't drive it very much because of the engine problem. But we'll see if that ABS code sets in this state. we'll give it some boost. Oh yeah, it's got some balls. Alright, let's see how she goes. Anti-skid service required, yep. Now with that problem, it might limit the power, but it still drives really nicely. Super smooth. Yeah, it's not very happy on the road here in terms of stability. We'll get that fixed up though. So that's it. Back on the road. Crazy problems with these Volvos. And I guess not many people are qualified to work on them because they are kind of quirky. Now, taking the engine out, putting it back in, I guess they did a decent job. They just forgot to put some bolts back in and didn't clean the ground cable. Otherwise, this car would never have had this problem. Very strange problem. Like I said, even with the scope, you wouldn't say that's a bad ground. No way. The signal looked just fine. But that's what the problem was. The car's back on the road after fixing that issue. So shout out to my friend Zach who dug up that TSB. It wasn't directly listed for this vehicle, but it was for like an older S80. But these Volvos, they're all the same. You know, aluminum block, inline 5 or 6 cylinder turbo, automatics, same layout, so same issues. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Alright, back to the Volvo XC90. We have a couple things to finish up here. Track bar replacement, 4-wheel alignment, oil change. Make sure it drives straight down the road. So here's the bent track bar versus straight new track bar. And you could probably put this in a press and straighten it out, but hey, you know, these things aren't that expensive. They are pretty thin apparently, so that's the weak spot on the Volvos. Don't back into anything, otherwise your alignment's going to be affected. Pretty easy, just 2 bolts. We'll put the strings up there, do a 4-wheel alignment, and this car should be straight as an arrow. Alright, got the alignment squared away. Last thing we need to do is an oil change. And I want to measure crankcase pressure with a pressure transducer to make sure that this thing won't blow another rear main seal. That was the root cause of this whole mess. Rear main seal blew, engine was taken out, wasn't quite screwed together correctly, and caused the eventual crank no start. So let me set up the scope, and we'll take it on a test drive, get it under some boost, and make sure that the crankcase doesn't build any pressure to push out any seals. Alright, let's clear out all the trouble codes here. Now we're driving a 10.5. This battery is actually kind of weak. Even says low battery. Hopefully it's enough to start the vehicle. Okay, let's start up. Dang it! Needs a battery. Alright, let's get it under some boost here. Look at our crankcase pressure. Should be 0. Yeah, this thing goes. And make sure the steering wheel is straight when you're going straight. And it is. Good enough for me. that shouldn't push any seals out. Alright, I'm happy with that. I'm just doing an oil change and maybe change the battery out. I don't want to give the owner back his car and leave him stranded somewhere, but I'll recommend it. So that's it. Another crazy Volvo. Basically no parts required, but that was a tough one. Without that TSB, I don't know. Just crazy how computers can react to even a slightly poor ground. Engine's still cranked over. Keep that in mind. That usually means your black ground is perfectly fine. Apparently it wasn't. So thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Uh-oh. Feels like I lost all my boost. Like I'm flooring it. Weak sauce. What the heck? Maybe a hose popped off somewhere? No check engine light. You can take a look at live data at the boost pressure. Too bad it doesn't have a boost gauge. But this thing was running like a rape tape until that's fine. Doesn't feel like it has all its horses here. No slight uphill grade. Let's say I'm flooring it. Aha, we did set a trouble code. No check engine light. 6805. Turbocharger control valve boost pressure fault, pressure too high. Huh. Well, let me do the oil change and we'll do a visual inspection. See if anything comes up. Alright, so oil change is complete. Let's see what this turbo boost code's all about. So, this right here is the boost control solenoid that attaches to the compressed air side, then the fresh air side on this hose, and the third hose goes right here and tees off into the two turbocharger wastegate controllers. So the this driver's side turbo, I'm just messing with the wastegate, and it's kind of sticky. Sometimes it sticks. It doesn't want to spring, return under the spring load. And also, I noticed someone's been here before, and the little nipple where that hose attaches, I'll get this on camera, it's almost falling off. There's like RTV silicone on there. Alright, so here's my blow nozzle. We're going to take a look at the wastegates. Definitely works, but if I just blow on here, I hear air coming right out of that damaged nipple. So that's basically a leak on that control circuit on that air hose. There's no way that's going to work. And what do we do? How do we fix that, considering it's all the way back here, inaccessible? I don't want to put more RTV sealant on it. Can we get an actuator assembly? I mean, we could temporarily fix it with some putty and then make sure there's no leaks. Test drive, everything's perfect. We'll quote a customer on that actuator. So that's how it goes sometimes with these cars that have been problematic for years. You test drive it, there's another problem, and there's another problem. So you have to keep calling the customer back. It's like, hey, we found this. Transmission seal is leaking, for example. Axle seal. So I'm going to quote them on that. New battery, turbo actuator. It just keeps adding up, but main customer complaint is resolved. So, all right. So here's a better shot of the broken nipple right on the actuator. It's still in there, but it's wobbling. So the solutions here are pretty limited. We either have to take the actuator out and either JB weld the nipple in there or recrimp it or something. There can't be any leaks between the nipple and the actuator. Or we have to replace the entire actuator, which is a shame. I mean, I can probably just pull this sucker out. There it is. So you can see it's broken off, right? Yep. So we'll figure something out and try to get this car back on the road. So I got the turbo actuator off the car with the broken nipple, and you know, there's nothing to lose. I'm just going to try soldering the nipple back onto the actuator. We can't heat it up too much because there's a rubber diaphragm in there, but localized heat enough to adhere the solder to the metal just might work. I cleaned up the metal really well. Now some people might say put some flux on it. This is flux core solder. It actually seems to be sticking pretty decently. So I'm just using the TS100 here. As long as this is vacuum tight and doesn't, you know, fall off, that's all we're looking for. This is way stronger than the RTV silicone crap they had on there. I don't see why it wouldn't work. That looks like it's sealed all the way around. Let's wait for it to cool down, put a little compressed air in here. Nope, no vacuum leaks. Maybe I'll try to pump it up with a bicycle pump. It'll... Perfect! That's it. This thing's fixed. I shouldn't have even gotten the eBay Chinese one. That's all we need. Super solid. It holds air. This car is basically done. You can tell the owner no parts required, and you know, this I can guarantee because it's metal, not RTV silicone. Let's put it back on the car, see how it runs. Alright, so the actuator is reinstalled. There's the rod. So I'm going to put a little compressed air in there and see if the actuator works. I'm happy with that. Good travel. Comes right back. There's no slop in there. Let's take this baby for a spin. Okay, let's take the Volvo for a rip. My friend is holding the scanner. So we'll see what the maximum boost is and if the boost controller is working properly. Okay. So far so good. Alright, getting closer to getting this Volvo finished up. So we're addressing the leak on the right side of the transmission axle seal. So, there's the hole, there's the axle. You would think pretty straightforward. But not so. This is a quirky Volvo. So I ordered right side transmission seal. This is a 4-speed GM Ford T65 transmission. Here's the seal, and what do you know it? It's completely different than the one I'm trying to replace. I mean, it'll fit in the hole if I smash it in, but the inner diameter is a lot smaller than the axle shaft. what gives? Well, it turns out this isn't the transmission. This is the chain drive for the transfer case for the all-wheel drive system. It piggybacks off the passenger side of the transmission. So if you go further into the hole there, you see there's another oil seal, and that's the second seal for this transfer case unit. It is kind of a weird setup. There are 4 oil seals total, and check this out. When I took the axle shaft out, I had a whole bunch of transmission fluid coming from the chain case. I'm like, interesting. The fill plug is right there, and you can see the level of the fill plug is a lot lower than this hole. So this thing was for some reason overfilled. Why would that be? The fill plug is completely full of this paste. So we have to do a little research. What fluid goes in the chain case, and then off the chain case there's another separate unit, a bevel gear drive that goes to the rear drive shaft. All these cases have different fluids. So this case is not supposed to have any transmission fluid in it. It's supposed to have manual transmission oil, like, you know, light gear oil, GL4. So how did the transmission fluid get here and overfill this chain case? Let's take a look at some parts diagrams, see how that's possible. Alright, so here's what this chain case looks like, and then the bevel gear is another separate unit attached to the chain case. So this just takes power from the transmission to go to the rear drive shaft. So the power comes in here, but the front axle shaft is concentric with this shaft, and it goes right through it. So things are starting to make a little more sense. For the procedure to take off this chain case, they say, see, drain the gearbox fluid, use an oil suction device to drain approximately 4 liters of gearbox fluid. Remove the subframe. Drain approximately 4 quarts of the gearbox fluid. Aha. So, if you don't do that, and you pull the axle shaft out, the transmission fluid will flow right into that chain case and overfill it, and then you got a problem. And that's probably why the seal was leaking, because the thing was just overfilled. So we have the wrong fluid in there now. The transmission is probably a little low in fluid. This all happened when they removed the engine to replace the rear main seal. So basically this guy, he actually said he got the job done for free, but it looks like he's paying for it now. All these things that we're fixing are due to this big job that was performed 3 years ago. So anyways, looking at parts diagrams, here's our chain case and bevel gear drive. So we're worried about all these oil seals. There's 14, 15, and 16. Which one do we need? So if we look at the picture of the case, there's a seal. So you see this shaft here, it's a hollow shaft. So this end actually splices in, you can see it's serrated, on the outer diameter into the transmission, and that is the power for the chain. The axle shaft goes through this hollow shaft and also has to be sealed. So we have one seal right here, and then one seal on the other side, the one that's leaking. Those are the two that contain the gear oil inside the chain case. The seals that contain the transmission fluid, obviously there's a transmission seal on the transmission side, which, let's see here, this guy right here, nope. They say check the seal. right here. So this is the transmission with the chain drive removed. See, there's an oil seal here. There's transmission fluid on this side. And even the part that I ordered, that's not the right one either, because it's too small for that big hollow shaft. So anyways, this one seems to be okay. There's no external leaks between the chain drive and the transmission. Then this one is okay. There's no external oil, again, leaking between the two units. Then there's a seal on the inner diameter of this shaft that hugs the axle shaft. You can see the axle shaft has two sealing surfaces. This is the outer one. This is the inner one on the inner shaft. So it's a shaft-to-shaft seal. That one is, I'm hoping, okay, because that one is impossible to replace. And there's transmission fluid on this side, right? And then gear oil on this side of the shaft. So that seal is basically in between the two fluids. Pretty important. But if you pull the shaft out, then the transmission fluid, which is level is here, is going to fill up the chain case. Crazy stuff. So what I think the solution here is we have to suck out all the fluid in this chain case and fill it with the appropriate manual transaxle lubricant. MTL, this is a 75W80 GL4 gear oil. That's what's specified. And the seal we can just leave alone because it won't be overfilled and it'll have a thicker oil in it. It will definitely not leak. Then we'll reinstall the axle shaft and fill the transmission with with the car level running. We'll fill that with transmission fluid, and cross your fingers, the inner seal there in that hollow shaft is good, so transmission fluid won't be pouring out into here. That's my game plan. Let's see if it works. Alright, so we're extracting the mystery fluid out of this chain case. Just using my little brake bleeding setup. So the capacity is 1 quart, so that should be maybe 10 of these. Little canisters, not a big deal. I don't extract fluids very often, so the issue here is trying to get this hose to the bottom of that case. So I only extracted a little bit. There should be a lot more fluid in there. There's no drain plug. Thanks, Volvo. So I'll have to come up with something a little more that drain plug is sideways and you gotta bend the hose down to get to the bottom of that case, unfortunately. Alright, well, I got as much out as I could, maybe half of the capacity. I think we'll be okay. MTL, we'll put it right in here and then wait for it to come out of the fill hole. That way you'll know our level will be good. And this fluid is actually kind of pink, so I think it will be just fine for our purposes here. So we fill that up and then we'll stick the axle shaft back in. Alright, so we're full on the fill plug. I think this thing will be pretty happy. I mean, some manual transmissions actually specify automatic transmission fluid, but this will be at least a half quart put in there, and down the road maybe we can do another extract and fill. But for just the chain, there's no other gears there, it's just the chain. So I think that fluid will be happy. So let's clean this mess out and then reinstall everything. So I don't know if this amount of paste is normal or not, and I actually don't know how to get everything out of here because it's sticking to the magnet. I guess it's not absolutely crucial, but it'd be nice to have a clean fill plug to start with. And next time we pull it, we'll be able to see how much wear there is. A little compressed air, clean as a whistle. Alright, let's reinstall the fancy axle. You just have to be real careful to guide it along the seals. The strut is a little bit in the way, but I think we should be able to manage here. There we go. So it's locked in. Everything has to be different about the Europeans, huh? Like the bolt seals the actual CV grease inside the joint. Funky and quirky. Alright, she's up and running. Let's check the dipstick. Put the gear lever through all the gears, put it in park, wait a couple minutes, and then check the level with the engine running. That's the OEM procedure. And as you can see, you know, we might be touching the bottom of the dipstick, but obviously that's not enough. So let's add 1 quart and remeasure it. And this one's kind of a little tricky. Just stuff that in there and kind of pour it in. Get this level back up to spec. Alright, 2 quarts of transmission fluid added. That's quite a bit. We're finally back up to right here, right below the hot mark. You guys can see that on camera. It's pretty clean fluid now. So, happy with that. Take it for a spin, make sure there are no leaks. So follow up on the 2004 Volvo XC90 T6 twin turbo. Customer's been driving it for 2 months, no issues, well, almost no issues. After filling the transmission to the appropriate level with transmission fluid, I took it on a test drive and parked it, and sure enough, that right side axle seal, the external one on the chain case, was leaking transmission fluid again. So the only thing that could mean is that internal seal in the chain case that separates the transmission fluid from the gear oil was damaged or leaking after, you know, the initial job with the engine removal. So, and that's not an easy fix. There's even a TSB on this. AT leaks after transmission replacement. And here's a really cool diagram of all the seals. So here's the chain case, and this is the seal that I'm talking about. It's internal. It hugs the axle shaft. Transmission fluid on this side, gear oil on this side, and to replace that, as you can see, you need to split the chain case, remove the chain case, split it, and then replace this seal. Insanity. Just a terrible design. Performing these repairs during transmission repair will prevent repeat repairs due to leaks and improve customer satisfaction. Oh man. So this is not one car I would recommend for long-term ownership. I know the transmissions have problems. Apparently the rear main seal has problems. The chain case has problems. But the customer's driving it, and I'm like, well, that's the best we can do for now. So appreciate everyone watching. and we'll see you on the next fun Volvo case study. Yes, there's another one coming up.